I'm Tim Monroe, and this is what I really want to talk about. There's something fascinating about every single one of us. Everybody has a passion and a story to tell, something that lights them up. Every week I sit down with interesting people and we talk about the things that really matter to them and to all of us. It might be funny, it might be weighty, it might be weird. It's what I really want to talk about. I'm talking today with Gary Price. Gary is a librarian, writer, consultant, and frequent conference speaker based in the Washington D.C. metro area. He's a co-founder and editor of library journals infoDOCKET. He also produces a collection of library-related news and higher ed news for the Association of Research Libraries. He's the former director of online information services at Ask.com. With a BA from the University of Kansas, he earned his master's in library and information sciences from Wayne State University in Detroit. He's won several awards, including the SLA Innovations in Technology Award and Alumnus of the Year from the Wayne State University Library and Information Science Program. Gary and I have known each other for a very long time, having grown up in the same town in suburban Chicago. Welcome, Gary. What do you really want to talk about today?
Tim, it's great to see you. Yeah, it's been, I think, something like 45 years or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Like that.
Something insane, yeah.
Back when I had hair, at least.
Right, me too.
Yeah. I was thinking when you approached me to do this, I was originally thinking that you would want to talk about some of the things I do, specifically libraries, but even more specifically these days, AI, library databases. But what I like to talk about, and what you've asked me to speak about, is being the father of a child on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, and I think that's great. I think we're going to have a great conversation. We can weave some of that other stuff in too, but I think your experience as a parent of an autistic child is going to be really great to talk about. So before we do that, though, I'd love for you to talk just for a couple minutes briefly about kind of the arc of your career, sort of where you come from, where you are now, and then we'll dive into talking about your son.
Where I come from the same place you come from.
Yeah.
That is northern suburban suburb of Illinois. What I always like to tell people is, since I work with a lot of people in higher ed, a lot of them, I'll just say I grew up, even closer, I grew up 2 miles from Northwestern University.
Yeah, I grew up 2 blocks from Northwestern University.
I was about to say, I was 2 miles, you were 2 blocks.
Yeah.
So we both attended New Trier High School, and so after high school, I went to the University of Kansas, graduated there in 1988, the year they won the Final Four. Get that in there. Go Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
Danny and the Juniors.
Yep.
Yep.
Danny Manning.
Yep.
Was
Danny Manning,
our player there. I came back to Chicago, worked at our hometown newspaper for 5 years, the Wilmette Live, the Pioneer Press newspapers, 38 suburban weeklies. Doing that during that time, something else we could talk about, mental health issues. At the end of that, I went through a clinically diagnosed major depression. Had incredible support from the company, incredible insurance, but also perhaps even more importantly, absolutely more importantly, I had the support then of my girlfriend, now wife, and of my parents and my sister. And it was challenging, but we got through that. And at that point, it was my mother, as that was coming, as we were getting a handle on it, it was my mother who said, you've always loved doing research. And she's right. I would go to our Wilmette Public Library, Evanston Public Library, and just sit there and look at reference books.
Yeah.
I love facts. So I thought, that's an interesting idea. I could actually become a librarian. It's interesting that now, over the course of my career, a lot of other people come to librarianship from something else. My undergraduate degree, I should say, is in film history. I'm a media guy, as you know.
Yeah.
Long story short, there, I looked at different schools, and I wanted to be in an urban area, but I didn't want to stay in Chicago, but I didn't want to be that far away. So Detroit was a good option. And in May of '93, my girlfriend, now wife, and I, we moved to Detroit. 2.5 years there. Early '96, we moved to here in D.C., where I worked for 5 years at George Washington University. And in 2001, I was the co-author of a book called The Invisible Web. And at that point, I was doing so much speaking and consulting that, and rightly so, I understand it, GW said, you're either here or you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I said, I'll give it a go as a consultant for a few years. And
Mm-hmm.
long story short, again, 24 years since then, I've been on my own since.
Yeah. So, you've had a sort of a interesting career, and you're well known in your field. I know that for sure. And you've had this sort of great journey as a librarian, a researcher, and somebody who's really plugged into the current sort of data around AI and research and all that. So, but I'm really glad that what you really want to talk about is being the parent of an autistic child. So let's start with some definitions. And I know there's lots of ways to talk about autism and what it is and what it's not. But in your experience, how would you define autism?
Well, I'm probably not the one to do it on an official basis, but I can say
Right.
I can really talk as we get so as a way to get to know who my son is.
Yeah. Yeah.
He struggles with focus.
Mm-hmm.
However, when he's interested in something, his focus is hyper. That's all he wants to look at. That's all he wants to talk about. I'm also, again, like you said, we talk about it. It is a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So I can also tell you what he's not. And one particular thing, for some kids on the spectrum, loud noises, that kind of thing are an issue. This morning, it's interesting too. I was thinking about it this morning. As you know, Tim, I have also a deep interest and love of music,
Mm-hmm.
especially I like all types of music. And as my son was playing his songs on Apple Music this morning, he's listening. This morning we heard "Eye of the Tiger," and we heard "Let It Be."
Okay.
I mean, it's that eclectic too, and that's interesting. I don't push any of that. He just finds these songs himself. Sometimes I'm interested in. I'd like to understand where he's hearing them, but wherever.
Yeah.
So loud music is not an issue. Loud sounds aren't an issue. He also, and I'm blessed with this one because I grew up in a very hugging household. Physical is not an issue. He loves to be hugged. He loves to be touched.
Yeah.
It's really, really wonderful. And I'm very blessed that is not even close to an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So focus is a major issue because we can't be interested in everything all of the time. It takes them sometimes incredibly long amount of time. We're working on this to just get dressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if he knows that something after he's getting dressed is at the highest level, he can be dressed in 30 seconds. So there's no physical limitation to him,
Right.
in terms of that. I've also, and then a major portion of it too is the social.
Mm-hmm.
It's a major portion of it. We really have to work on being social and having eye contact. That's part of the socialization. Those are all things that are challenges for him.
Is the socialization mostly with peers, like kids his own age, or is it?
Yeah, and
with
as a matter of
everyone?
fact, I think he does better with it, especially, and it's easier for him to be around adults that he might not know. It's easier that relationships comes more quickly than it does with his peers. He's very interested in other kids, even as an infant and 2, 3, 4, 5. When we go to the playground, he'd love to watch the other kids.
Mm-hmm.
But actually going up to one of them, let's play together, let's do that type of thing, going to another kid's house, another boy's house, in my son's case, and hanging out, that's something that we've never been able to do to this point.
Yeah.
We try and we're working on it, absolutely.
Right. So how old is he, and how old is he now, and where is he in school?
Well, by the way, we should use his name. I think that
Matthew.
Matthew.
Matthew. Yep.
By the way, it's interesting. He's 13 now. Matter of fact, he just celebrated his 13th birthday. We had a little bar mitzvah for him, which went really well. Mm-hmm. But the name itself is interesting. He's named after my father. As you might know, in the Jewish tradition, you take in a letter from deceased relative's name or a close friend's name. So my father was Martin, and we get the M from there, and his middle name is Daniel. And my father-in-law, who was also passed when he was born, was Dennis, so he's Matthew Daniel.
Okay.
The question was, where were we?
Where is he in school? How old is he? Where's Matthew in
13. He's now he'll be going into 8th grade. Mm-hmm. And the whole school experience, we could do multiple episodes of your podcast.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
Yeah, that has been really challenging. When it began, when he started school, both pre-K. Well, we can go there
Yeah,
later.
let's talk about like how did you when Matthew was very young, when did you first sort of
Well,
begin to, think there's something going on that we
yeah,
need
it
to
was
deal with?
absolutely, I, we're talking. I've also learned, I said at his bar mitzvah, Matthew, I'm here to be his dad and teach him, guide him, but Matthew teaches me stuff every day.
Yeah.
And the other thing I've learned about being the son of an incredible mom, I'm also the husband of an incredible mom. My wife was the first one who really picked up on this.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was the eye contact, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And here in Maryland, I think in other parts of the country, but specifically here in Maryland, they'll come out for early intervention. So
Right.
it begins with somebody coming to your home and taking an intake test and all that kind of thing and having a conversation. And here in Maryland, they begin that process at 18 months.
Wow. Okay.
And 18 months and one day, they were in our living room doing what they needed to do, talking to us, observing him, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we qualified. And from that moment on, it has been a nonstop, not only school, but we started at 18 months really. Was going to centers and doing physical things and that, physical activities and occupational therapy, all those kind of things. And I can say that is one of the biggest takeaways over the last 13 years is when you read about early intervention and the differences it can make.
Yeah.
I can speak firsthand to that. Every minute counts, and it has made a big difference. I know it's made a big difference in his life and in our family's life.
Mm-hmm.
Getting the
Mm-hmm.
help and working with really wonderful professionals from literally one day after we could begin has made a huge difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would think so. And do they know, Gary, do they know what causes autism? They don't.
We've done a lot of that kind of stuff, but there's no definitive answer. And
Yeah.
at a certain point, it is what it is.
Yeah.
At least, the science absolutely fascinating and interesting, but in a day in, day out basis, being the parent, being the father of a kid,
Right.
that is interesting, but we can't go back. And by
No.
the way, that's a life lesson for somebody who lives up in my head a lot of the time
Mm-hmm.
and worries, anxious about the future. What could I have done differently? At this point, it is what it is, and really so we did everything we could possibly do from the very first time we could possibly do it.
Right. And so at that, very young age, you said they started to intervene at 18 months old. What were the markers that you and your wife, you and Lisa, were seeing about Matthew that made you, invite this intervention?
Well, as I said, it was the eye contact. There were some
Yeah.
physical activities, not being able to just jump up and down, that kind of like
Okay.
jump off the lowest stair with us at the bottom. To be
Yeah.
clear
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
By the way, since then,
Yeah.
he's also one of the great things to watch with Matthew's development is that well, not only he's an incredible jumper, and one of the things he uses to regulate himself, which has really been fascinating to see, to calm himself down. Again,
Mm-hmm.
your kids teach you
Yeah.
involves jumping.
Yeah.
I think the best thing I've ever purchased in my life was a $75 trampoline that we have in our living room, and he uses it all the time. I should also
Yeah.
say Matthew's physical condition is unbelievably amazing. He is
Mm-hmm.
everything that I'm not in terms of he does have, like a lot of kids on the spectrum, he does have a very limited palate.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of chicken tenders.
Yeah.
It's a lot of homemade cheese and pizza. His vices would be pepperoni on a pizza
Yeah.
and French fries.
Right.
That's
Well,
about it.
it's funny, Gary. You and I have talked a little bit about my younger brother who has autism too, and wasn't really diagnosed till later in life. But when he was very little, I'm 10 years older than him.
Right.
When he was very little, he used to do these hilarious things where he'd be in his crib on all fours and he'd be rocking back and forth like obsessively all the time. Or if he was sitting on a couch, he'd be bouncing off the back cushion, for like a half an hour. And this would be regulating him. We see it now. Like we look back, if when I was 10 years old, I was like, what the hell's this kid doing? Like, what's up? And we didn't know, but he was finding ways to regulate his body movements and his he still is that way. He has a hard time keeping still. And like you were describing, my brother's very thin because he never stops moving. He
Yeah.
never stops moving. Yeah. Yeah.
And, and
I mean, not
and
in a
by the
weird
way,
way,
another
but
thing
like
that Matt,
he's very active. Yeah.
in another way, Matthew's not like me, but in terms of the sensory, the physical,
Yeah.
swimming, being just not even swimming
Mm,
so much, but just being in the
in
water,
the
being able
water.
to has been a huge is wonderful. He's always not that he's never in a bad mood or rarely in a bad mood. He's also a human being, but he's also but he often comes home in a great mood after a day at the pool.
Yeah. So talk a
Which
little bit about your as a parent, um, and you have these expectations of what parenting is going to be like, what your kid is going to be like, and all that. So what have been the challenges for you and your wife in terms of, having to maybe rearrange your ideas of what a parenting was going to be?
and what Matt the potential. I mean, Matthew has a lot of potential, but
Sure.
your kids aren't you, and they grow up
No.
differently than you do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, as I said earlier about my wife, she is just one of the many wonderful things about my wife, to put it mildly, because there's thousands, but we both come from, especially her, not taking no for an answer.
Mm.
This does not directly to your question, but whether it be insurance, whether it
Mm.
be, well, we don't know if we can give you this service or not,
Mm-hmm.
my wife doesn't take no for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I've also learned is um, a lot of people, unfortunately, bury their head in the sand. Well,
Mm-hmm.
will it get better?
Mm-hmm.
Especially
Mm-hmm.
when they're younger. Well, maybe he'll grow out or she'll grow out of
Mm-hmm.
this. I was absolutely when my wife said, I want to get an intake from the school district about early intervention. I actually even said, why don't we give it another 6 or 9 months?
Mm-hmm.
She said, no, we're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not taking no for an answer. And in terms of what being a parent is, yeah, so everything that he does in school, we have, like this morning as we're recording this, he first goes to music class. I mean, again, I don't know if this is any different than any other parent, but he does work really hard. I was just giving an idea of a summer day for him on yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to summer school for 3.5 hours. Then one of us moves him from summer school, the parent as chauffeur type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
We take him from summer school for 3.5 hours to camp.
Mm-hmm.
Got camp until 3:30, and then he moves from camp for another 2.5 hours, 2.5 hours, to somebody who we've been working with since he's been about 3 years old, a behavior specialist. That's her technical title, but she's much more than that. So
Mm-hmm.
she worked, and he was with her. So I mean, you think about how much he's working, how much we're
Yeah.
working with him,
Right.
and now it's just part of his life. And he's a real trooper. He never ever pushes back on any of these things. Now, and that, by the way, yes, this is the summer, so camp is something he adores.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say too, we have found an incredible camp here that has what they call a buddy program. So it's a camp through the Jewish Community Center. It's open to everyone. It's been around for 50 years.
Yeah.
Uh, but they do take special needs kids, and he has a one-on-one buddy who basically is his shadow all day. And he
Mm-hmm.
just adores this camp, and not to mention he gets to go swimming every day.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's made a huge difference. But again, this is the summer, so yes, he had that 3.5 hour break yesterday where he was going to camp. But this schedule of school and then something else, and then working with our behavior person
Mm-hmm.
is all year round.
And that's
So
part of like, I mean, that's part of your challenge as a parent, right? It's like you and your wife you and Lisa are managing all of this sort of for him. So that's just this extra layer. I mean, not to say that, we raised a son and he had a lot of
right,
schedules and driving to school and
right,
basketball and whatever, music lessons, like all that kind of thing.
yeah,
But this feels like it's a whole other layer on top of all that.
yeah. And we've also been working with one of the greatest experiences, um, just to watch how it operates early in Matthew's life, probably around 3. We're very fortunate to live here in the D.C. area. there's a place up in Baltimore, so that's about a half an hour, 40 minutes from us, a place called the Kennedy Krieger Center.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working, when he was 3 years old, we went for a 5-hour pediatrician visit, a diagnostic pediatrician, where we learned a lot of great things. And we're very fortunate because people fly into the Kennedy Krieger Center from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
get their opinion, to get their diagnosis, to work with them. And for us, it was only a half an hour, 45 minutes away. We've been working with them. We do as much as we possibly can. And again, people like Gary, you and Lisa are so devoted to this. Absolutely. But that's what being a parent is. And in our case, as you were saying, kids are busy these days.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I mean,
Too busy. Yes.
probably too busy.
Yeah.
And there's so many different activities. In our case, we both know kids like who are into hockey. So they're up at 3:30 in the morning driving their
Yeah.
head. It's just different for us. But that's and I think too, part of my upbringing, and I'm 99.999% sure part of your upbringing, especially given your both your wife and your dad,
Mm-hmm.
education is everything.
Yes.
And I think that's the case for every parent. But
Mm-hmm.
it is so ingrained into me. It is so
Mm-hmm.
ingrained into you. And
Mm-hmm.
and while it is part of it's the most important thing, I think for Matthew, it's even a little bit more important. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I
Yeah.
don't
No, it
put
does.
down I'm not trying to put down anybody else,
Yeah.
because Matthew does have a lot of potential, but it's going to take a lot of extra work to get him to his potential.
We'll talk a little bit because I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but talk about how the challenges have been in terms of making sure that Matthew gets the services that he needs and deserves through the public schools or through other agencies.
It's a great question. It's not giving up. It's having the resources to know where to go look. So
Mm-hmm.
there's the research angle in there. And by the way, I should say, and again, a lot of that comes from my wife in terms of me doing research, which is something that is what I really am trained to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was one of the most important decisions I've made, not only in my career, but more specifically as a dad. Is very early on, I said, I am not going to become the research guy when it involves my son.
Mm-hmm.
We will research to find the best people to guide us, to lead us, but I do not want to become Matthew is becoming my research project.
Right.
Anytime I saw a specific behavior, I'd be running to this database and that database and reading the most current research about everything. It
Yeah.
would be all too consuming. It would be OCD inducing for me,
Mm-hmm.
and it would not allow me, in my opinion, to be the best dad
Right.
possible. My job is to be his dad, not for him to be my research project, so to speak.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's having the resources to know where to go look, to leaving no stone unturned. And it also is a great lesson in putting trust in the people that you do find in a non-school situation. So as I said, we've had private OT, private PT. This morning, Matthew was at a music class. He loves that.
Mm-hmm.
He then goes to OT. So it's finding the right people and putting your trust in them.
Yeah.
And we've been very, very blessed to find some incredible people. As I said, the behavior person is much more than that. And she's been with him for now well over a decade.
Yeah.
And he
And
sees
so
her at least twice a week.
so in terms of making sure that his school setting is appropriate, what's that been like?
Now you get into the most interesting part about being Matthew's parent, because Lisa and I have, as parents, have had a 180 with the school
Mm-hmm.
system. We live in a very basically the equivalent type of school district that you and I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Really well known and well
Mm-hmm.
respected.
Mm-hmm.
The pre-K through 5 was as good as it gets. Of all of my education, of all of my wife's education, we have never experienced anything as wonderful as this.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. It's also being the son, Tim, of a K-12 educator, and a great one. I also learned the value of leadership in K-12 education.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, the principal of Matthews Elementary School was an incredible leader. And it was also a great lesson of leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
he not only hired all of the teachers, and it was a new school when he got to school as principal. So he basically hired everybody in the school, and he really created a team of teachers who all bought into it as professionals, and that became extended to the entire school community.
Yeah.
And he also, it was a great lesson in leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they needed extra help on a rainy day or a snowy day to get the carpool line moving and organized, he was out there. And I'll never forget too, one year at the school carnival, we got there early, and who's blowing up the bouncy house? The principal.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible experience, and that all changed in middle school. So we went in a 3-month summer between 5th grade and 6th grade, and then when 6th grade started, it really went downhill. Then also there's the COVID years in there as well. But it has been a real challenge for Matthew and for our family, middle school so far. He is not getting what he's deserving of. And like we fought for him and advocated for him since the beginning, it continues now. So he will be beginning 8th grade in the fall. But after the first semester of 6th grade, we realized, Lisa and I looked at each other and said, this is not sustainable. This has to change. So we went out looking for an attorney. As you know, there are attorneys who specialize in special needs education, getting kids what they deserve. By the way, he obviously has an IEP, which, as you also know, is a legally binding document.
Yep.
So we were so fortunate to get there's 2 or 3 go-to guys here, go-to attorneys. It's more than the guy. Go-to attorneys here. We were able to get one of them. He has not only been doing this for 40 years, he's a native of this. He grew up in this school district, and he grew up in this area. As a matter of fact, there's a highway not far from here that's named after his grandfather.
Okay.
So he went through the entire process, you know, and the process was, what was our goal? Our goal was to get Matthew into a private school and have the school district pay for it.
Right.
Because did I ever tell you how much the private schools around here cost that would best meet Matthew's needs?
Oh, I can't imagine. 80
well,
grand.
We've also learned, I should say, it's a 90 some percent, I think more like 94, 95% of these kids are paid for by the school district.
Right.
The cost of the 2 go-to schools are about $85,000 a year.
Yeah.
Right. And these are not, you know, residential schools. These are, you know, the school from 9 to 5 or 8 to 3, whatever. Well, that took months as he's going through 7th grade. But it boiled down to the fact that we won. We were able to get the public schools to say, we will give you the financial support to put him in a private school.
Yeah.
Problem is, we're not the only ones doing this.
Sure. Yeah. There's a waiting line, I assume.
Schools, those 2 or 3 best private schools to meet Matthew's specific needs, right? Because that's the whole point of this. They're all oversold. They're all overbooked, and there's not enough room. So we had to do a whole 7th grade at the public school. There was nowhere to put him.
Right.
And that was discouraging. I will have to say 7th grade overall was better than 6th, but it's still not getting what he deserves. And that's very difficult as a parent to realize that he's not getting what he deserves to help him live up to his fullest potential.
Yeah, and it somehow, you know, this is true, is a generalization, but in the younger years, like you were talking about how K-5 was great, schools and teachers tend to focus much more on the whole child. And then as they get older into the sort of middle school years and then into high school, the focus is much more on testing, academics, and they sort of, you know, the focus on the whole child just lessens as the kids get older. And that's a generalization. Not every school is that way, but the public schools tend to be that way. And the schools also get bigger. You know, like you and I went to an enormous high school, where if there was a teacher who paid attention to you, you were lucky. Individual attention, you were lucky, because there were when we were there 4,000 or 5,000 kids in the school, and so that ability to focus on the whole child gets harder and harder as they get older, and you do have to seek out your the best resources because yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that's going to continue to be, right? As then you hit high school.
Well, we've been told that there are a lot more opportunities in high school. There's a lot more
Okay.
flexibility. We'll
Yep.
see. I think it's also, as I said earlier, about leadership. I think
Hmm.
that really plays a huge role.
Yeah.
And a role that I never understood, not being the
Yeah.
son of a
Yeah.
professional educator,
Yeah.
how important that leadership at the highest levels are to
Hmm.
the entire school environment.
Right.
And
It's about
went
creating a
from,
culture, right? A culture
yeah,
about how you work with the kids and how you approach all that and it's the kind of thing you can feel almost as immediately when you walk into a school is this sort of culture and is it child centered or not or to what degree is it child
and
centered, you know?
right, and also that I haven't in the teamwork,
Hmm.
the team nature of the school, and that we're all in this. And I'm talking for the faculty. We're all in
Yeah.
this together,
Hmm.
and I just felt that so much at the uh, at the elementary school, and not
Yeah.
anything close to that from the highest levels um, at the
Yeah.
middle school. Again, that's and I don't know every teacher. I'm just speaking for what we've seen,
Right, and
and
you hit great teachers, as you go along, individual teachers who
absolutely.
make a huge
And
difference.
the
And
funny thing is,
yeah,
I'm also the brother of a special educator. And obviously, being on the older side of having a younger child, most of our friends have kids have gone through the process, special needs or not. And
yeah,
everybody said to Lisa and I, what you two are experiencing in elementary school, it might not always be like this.
yeah.
This is really exceptional.
Hmm.
And they were right.
Hmm.
In that fifth grade, the sixth grade, that summer, it it just was the beginning of what we're experiencing now for the last year and a half.
Yeah, and my mom also taught primary grades, kindergarten, first, second grade for many, many years, and she used to say she really believed that the kids, like Matthew, who had certain needs and certain differences, were the
Mm-hmm.
kids that she loved the most,
And
and made her work more the most rewarding.
and I think the difference too is the time period. You
Yeah.
know, what I mean, your brother was very fortunate to have parents who understood what was going on, but
Hmm.
just the difference in the last 30, 40
Oh,
years,
it's
even more so just the
huge.
last 10
Yeah.
years of
Yeah.
understanding what's going on here. Because
Right.
what I've also talked to a lot of parents whose kids are, your brother's age and older, and it was often the parents who got some sort of blame for their kid being a little bit different, and
Right.
how dispiriting that must have been.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I have to say too, one of the other things I've learned, just a quick aside, is how important in Matthew's case, he went pre-K and kindergarten, and how important those teachers are. I
Hmm.
never understood how important kindergarten was.
Oh my
I'll
God.
never
It's
forget the first time we brought him into the elementary school for kindergarten. Now he had 2 years, and one of his two pre-K teachers, she had been there for over 40 years, so she was
hmm
great. But
hmm
now let's go to the orientation center for kindergarten. The first time he's in the school building, it was challenging. Within a day of the first day of kindergarten, his kindergarten teacher was one of the best professional educators I've ever encountered in my life, and
hmm
she changed everything. And from that moment on, from basically day one of kindergarten on, he loves to go to school.
That's
There's
great.
never been. I mean, I wish I didn't push. He never pushes back.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
never says, I'm tired. I want to stay home today. None of that. It
Right.
has never been a day. Yeah, sometimes he says, I don't want to go. But then 5 minutes later, he's dressed and he's ready to go and he's running out of the car to get in there. And I
Hmm.
never really understood, without experiencing it, how vital those couple of years are.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely. Yeah. I saw that with my mom and no, there were students who many years later would remember that I started my school career with Mrs. Monroe and it made a
well,
huge difference for me. Right.
I should
Yeah.
say that, as I said, that we just had a little bar mitzvah for him, and
Hmm.
one of the people there was his kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you alluded to this before, but you talked about you mentioned how much you've learned from Matthew, being his dad. What are some of those things you can sort of pick out and highlight?
Well, those things are just very personal to me because they're
Sure.
different than I find it fascinating just to look at him view the world. And I'm always, he's, one thing again that's gotten so, I mean, transitions for him, which I know this is also very common with kids on the spectrum, transitions just from going out for the day to coming back home are challenging. And that's something, yes, that he is very typical. He was typical with that as a youngster. Now there's no issue whatsoever. But as I said earlier, I live up in my head a lot of the time. I'm anxious a lot of the time. And I don't see that with him. Of course, he's anxious some things, but he's very much living in the moment, taking it as it comes. And that's something that I need to get better at, even in my advanced years. And I'm working towards getting better at.
Yeah.
But just the overall calmness that he has, sure, like anybody, and you can see it, new things can be challenging. But that's the case, neurotypical or not, or atypical or not. But I think just on a minute by minute basis, most of the time, he's very calm. The fact, too, of that physical learning to regulate, learning to calm down by going and jumping on the trampoline for 2 or 3 minutes. The way he eats, his diet is limited, but even as a kid, and we're also fortunate. Now, I joke about this, but there's a little bit of truth in this. Wouldn't it be great to have a kid that you can go get an ice cream cone with? Because I like ice cream, like most people do. I seem to have I have one of the few kids who doesn't like ice cream.
Yeah.
He would eat. He eats fruit. As a kid, he would eat lima beans like we eat M&Ms.
Yeah.
So he eats healthy. I mean, all those types of things are great lessons for me, who does and has done the opposite of those for many, many years.
Right.
But I'm very fortunate, and this is something too about the private schools. Again, spectrum, but something that often is the case with spectrum kids are their behavioral issues. My son has none. None. And I think too that what we've seen with there are two programs that we'd love to get him into. They're full, right? Some of the other programs that we'd be interested in talking to, we've talked to a couple of them, but they are often more focused. They have more programs available, more spots available for kids with behavioral issues.
Right.
And the question too is, well, and my wife and I agree, why would we want to put him in a classroom with kids with behavioral issues when he doesn't have any? That's behavior that we don't want him around. He doesn't need to learn from that type of thing. And the same thing too with, homeschooling. That's never been an option for a variety of reasons, but namely the fact, as I said earlier, that the socialization is one of his biggest needs, and homeschooling him would be the opposite of that.
Right.
Let alone the fact that Lisa and I are not professional educators.
Yeah. So one of the challenges I've always had as a parent and just as a person is patience. And I'm imagining, or I'm wondering if being Matthew's father has helped you in that regard.
Yes, I think but I would argue that that's the case for any parent. I don't think Matthew,
sure.
I don't think there's anything special because of Matthew's special needs to make him. Matter of fact, in many cases, he's so low key most of the time that that has not been an issue in terms of patience. Yeah, sure, but again, I think the patience that I need to be Matthew's dad are no more or no less the patience that anybody needs to be their child's parent.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, that's a really great way to put it.
And really no different in patience it turns out to be with anybody you're around throughout the day, other people.
Right.
And I have to say too, by the way, he is just so low key, and he rarely asks for anything except to go to IHOP. He loves IHOP. But and maybe this is just different. He's not a TV kid. But again, I'm talking like an old man. Yeah. All of his video comes from YouTube.
Right.
But he doesn't play video games. And he also is just so non-materialistic. And I don't know if this is the case with other kids because I'm not everybody else's parent. But he's not the kid who would see a commercial on YouTube and say, "Hey, can I have that?" Or in our generation was often, "Hey, that's a cool commercial for a cereal. Mom, can I have that cereal?" He doesn't ask for any of those things. It's interesting. We don't spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of money. We don't spend it on buying him things that he's asking for, which we would if he did. But
yeah. So this has been a great conversation, Gary, and I really appreciate that this is what you wanted to talk about because it means so much to you, and really any parent I think can relate to this and learn from it. So as we kind of wrap this up a little bit, what would I hesitate to say what advice you would give, but what are some of the lessons you've learned through this process, through being Matthew's dad, that might help other people?
Well, as I said earlier, Tim, and I'm very concerned about this, not only as Matthew's dad, but also just being a citizen of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that early intervention programs will continue to have the funding that they need. And again, I'm also very fortunate, I should say too, that we live where we live. What
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about today, Tim, as you probably know, is different. It's state by state.
Oh yeah.
And we happen to live, Maryland happens to be one of the best states at this point for
Mm-hmm.
funding for what we're dealing with. And even then, I'm telling you the stories about the school, which aren't so great. And by
Mm-hmm.
the way, people say, well, why don't you just move to another area? We've asked that to our attorney. I
Yeah.
mean, even in Maryland, why don't we move somewhere to another county, for example? He's like, as challenging as this been for your family, Gary, there's no other county that would make it any better.
Right.
But the early intervention, that's one piece of advice. Take advantage of whatever is available to you. Another way of saying that is, and this is easier said than done, because I can understand why people would want to do this, but don't. In terms of my advice, don't bury your head in the sand. If you see
Mm-hmm.
something that doesn't look right, call on those who are professionals to give you advice and get whatever support you can. It makes a
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah.
I would also say, in our case, as I said earlier, um, I am the brother of a special educator, so there's friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
My sister is not only my sister and not only Matthew's aunt, which is first and foremost, but she has been given not only a lot of advice but a lot of support, and there's a difference there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say over the last 5 or 7 years, we have a mutual friend and she is also a special educator, Laura
Mm-hmm.
Marin,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
both know. Incredible advice and incredible support.
Yeah.
So tap those in your immediate family who might, and again, you don't even need advice a lot of times, it's just support to continue to push forward. All those things have made a big difference. And I guess just it's just it, I don't I'm at a loss for words, but it's something that I continue to struggle with every day. But just take every day unto itself. It's not
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That was a piece of advice that we got a lot. And again, I don't think that's any different for any other parent,
Yeah.
but that has really helped. And I guess along with that is, again, no different than any other parent, but you can't fight every single battle that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Really have to prioritize the most important battles and get those taken care of
Yeah.
at a higher priority than every other thing that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Matthew's. Oh, and I have to say one other thing that we learned, and I know scientifically, members of my own immediate family would say it's not scientifically proven, and I believe they're correct. But one other piece of advice we got from one of these people that we put our trust in is Matthew's diet, specifically with gluten, and that has made a huge difference to him.
Hmm.
We almost did our own little blind study. We changed Matthew's diet during the school week. This was, I think, in pre-K, to eliminate gluten products during the school week at least.
Mm-hmm.
And they said to us at the end of the period, we were going in for another IEP meeting. They said Matthew's attention has been much more focused over the last 6 to 8 weeks,
Yeah.
and that was exactly the time that we had removed gluten from his diet.
Yeah.
That summer, his swimming teacher said the exact same thing without knowing that we had removed gluten. So, right. In our case, that has made a big difference as well.
Yeah. So Gary, I really appreciate this conversation with you. It's been fun for me. I've learned a ton, and I hope others out there who are listening will understand and relate and learn what they can. You're obviously an amazing dad, and you should be proud of how you've raised Matthew.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, great conversation. Thank you so much, Gary. What I Really Want to Talk About is produced and recorded in the studios of Berea College News and Radio in Berea, Kentucky. You can learn more about this podcast and listen to all of the previous episodes at whatireallywantotalkabout.com. My contact information is on the website, so please get in touch with me if there is something that you really want to talk about. I'm Tim Monroe. Thanks for listening.